Welcome to the Communicating Earth podcast by Climate Acceptance Studios, the podcast by and for climate and nature communicators. So I've known of Phil's organisation for many years, but I actually met Phil at the Blue Earth Forum last year, and I'm really honoured he's coming on. He's the co-founder of a charity called the Carbon Literacy Project. He has this mission to embed carbon literacy at a core workplace competence and value everywhere. I like that ambition. Since 2009, he's facilitated the training of, well, let him tell us later in the podcast how many professionals across 50 countries and 7 continents. After a successful career in national radio and regeneration, Phil has devoted the rest of his working life to ensuring that his daughters have a future and not an apology by harnessing his skills in tackling the climate crisis. And his training, very much following the mission statement of this podcast, involves, above all else, active collaboration, to be peer-led, and to be relevant. Phil, welcome.
Brilliant summary. Can I use some of that? It's really.
Of course you can, yeah.
I'm going to steal some of that for our blurb. Fantastic. Thanks, Tom.
No, my pleasure. My pleasure. So we start off by asking how you define yourself. So, I work with everybody from activists to advocates to environmentalists. Where do you see your role? Who do you think you are as this trainer of all these people in climate and nature?
Well, one, actually, we'll come back to this. I don't actually train. So I'm a bit of everything, but more than everything, advocate. So I'm the opener of conversations, and now we've got a substantial team. So I've got this privilege of opening conversations and passing them on to colleagues who are much more specialist and more, frankly, more detail driven than me. So I open conversations, thus advocate, make those initial connections.
Okay, so that's your definition of what an advocate is. That's how you define yourself.
It's someone who brings new people into a field, I think. Yeah, so it's broadening people's perceptions of what they should engage with. I would venture.
That's very. I consider myself an advocate as well. I've got a subtly different definition.
Go on.
Yeah, I like bringing people together, but it's about bringing a new idea.
Yeah.
To somebody to persuade them to take it on.
Yep.
I suppose
With
that's
you on
quite
that.
similar, isn't it? Yeah. So I don't know if you're aware, but we have this mission statement here, which is that it's tales of action that inspire action.
Yep.
We're working with this amazing academic, Chris de Meyer, and I champion him in every podcast. Check out his work. It's really amazing. He heads up climate change at UCL. So we like to frame the narrative of the podcast around the tale of action, and very interested in you personally, Phil. So firstly, before we get onto your tale of action, why do you think it is that despite the overwhelming evidence, more action is not being taken?
I wish there was a simple answer to that, Tom. I think it's partly about confirmation bias. We don't like things to get suddenly disrupted, which blurs into limited bandwidth for new stuff. Because once you get into the climate agenda, you realize that little things don't work. Actually, you've got to make some substantial changes, or at least do the best thing that you can. And almost by definition, if it's not a bit challenging, it's probably not enough. So there's an innate conservatism. Chris has probably got proper terminology for this, but there's an innate. If we're lucky, we like things how they are. If we're unlucky, we've probably got very limited bandwidth and dealing with limited capacity to do new stuff. So I think it's partly that. And one of my early influences was the writer George Marshall, who set up Climate Outreach. And his book, Don't Even Think About It, The Psychology of Climate Denial, talked about our sort of inbuilt programming, psychological programming, to run away from things that are absolutely in front of you. Was it him that talked about, as cave people, you'd run away from a saber-toothed tiger at the mouth of the cave. If it's in the next valley, it's in the next valley. Which sort of makes common sense, except we've got this thing which is in the next valley and it's at the mouth of the cave at the same time. It's really, really serious and really, really dangerous and needs advanced thinking of the imminent threat in order to stave it off. So we're not, if that summarizes, some of our inbuilt programming, I think that's part of the question. There's also, I think, the whole issue around how we validate ourselves and how we've been conditioned to validate ourselves through overconsumption of stuff we don't need that we probably can't afford and actually doesn't really make us happy as well. So that as fuel for not just climate change, but also the rampant exploitation of the natural world. I think that's in the mix too. So quite a few things. Keeping our blinkers on. I think
I
think
couldn't
we've
agree. I can't agree more.
I think we've become a flock of sad magpies. We just, there's a new thing. Oh, there's a new thing. Will that make me happy? Will that make me happy? And again, I'm sure there's an old. I'm making up a quote of Henry Ford, but miserable people don't buy stuff. So we're kept in a sort of state of, or some of us, or many of us, are kept in a state of, I need something more to be happy, and so we go and buy something. And that something is probably made through a process of over-exploitation of the planet, which, of course, is self-harming.
Very much so, of extraction. Circling back, I absolutely agree with you. I mean, there was this word that was a buzzword a few years ago in our sector, glocal, and it sort of died away. But I think it's the most important thing, like having the local within a global context.
Yes.
And I think there are certain personality types that can sort of think about things in those terms, like you can, I can. So what is it about people like us that can see the bigger picture to the point where we radically shift our careers to devote our time to this?
I think there are many different stories there. I've always been involved as an activist in my adult life, starting with CND, then Friends of the Earth. So it's always sort of been in the background. But my jumping off point, the wheels jumped when I became a parent. And I this doesn't count for everyone, but I started having imagined future conversations with my daughters, where, wise humans as they are, they said, well, what did you do to stop this crap, Dad? And I'm still trying to have a good answer for that.
And in the spirit of a great daytime TV presenter, that acts as a beautiful segue into the first question proper. So, what action did you take? Tell me, what is a story of action that you can tell us to inspire our audience?
Well, I was running a successful community radio charity, setting up community radio stations, very much part of the sustainable development picture, giving people voice and skills in disadvantaged areas. But that call to professionalize what I've been doing as an amateur came on more and more strongly. And through a chance meeting with the person who turned out to be the co-founder of Carbon Literacy, Dave Coleman, we got involved in Manchester's first climate action plan. There'd been a strategy. This was the first time we're going to make a plan. And it was a huge stakeholder system that we were commissioned in to help. And there was a penny drop moment where, in the Gothic splendor that is Manchester Town Hall, oak-paneled committee room, I realized that we're getting some fantastic ideas. The supply of stuff coming in from Manchester and way beyond was brilliant. All the solutions and no demand. We were starting up this mega enterprise without demand. We're just looking at supply. Now, that's not going to work, is it? So we started thinking about how do we build demand and active participation in these multiple solutions that were coming through. And around one of these big committee room tables, I piped up and went, well, we need the city to be carbon literate, don't we? Everyone went, yes, we do. It became a big, audacious goal of this plan. And I think I can say it now. Maybe the headline ran away ahead of the detail, but luckily a whole bunch of really good, wise people, educators, employers, activists worked with us to help define how we create an endemic, impactful, low carbon culture. So that was the sort of the moment where we launched 13 years ago. And there were key decisions within that. Dave and I love training. So yeah, okay, we're skilling up. If we're going to mobilize, we need to skill our troops, for want of a better word. Let's go out and train them. No, two blokes can't go out and train the thousands and thousands of people. So we immediately had to go into a disseminated model, an enabling model rather than a delivery model. So that landed us with the idea of a flexible framework for training that anyone could use. So it was that the content was relatively straightforward. It was that disseminated model and nailing down some of the methodologies that we mandate that's made it so successful, and the fact that it has disseminated itself, it's become a meme.
So the driving force behind this dissemination strategy was volume.
Yes.
You just wanted to get to everybody everywhere as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and quality. So this is where the certification side of it comes in. So yeah, we could have done, as others have done. Here's a great model for training. Go forth, go do it. But obviously, that would lead to great variance in quality of delivery. Therefore, we bolted in embedded certification of courses, certification of learners as things that we insist on. So we had quality control as well as a highly effective methodology.
So our audience is climate communication professionals.
Yep.
And there's obviously a lot of, crossover between communications and training. And indeed, probably a lot of this audience do training within their comm strategy.
Yep.
But what would you say are the differences and what are the similarities, especially within the context of, winning hearts and minds on the climate crisis, between communications and training?
Well, actually, with our training, we the 8th learning outcome in our 8 learning outcomes is talking about it. So you learn all this stuff, you devise the best things you can do, and start to learn how to talk about it. Which for me is about, again, comes back to relevance, telling your own story. Yeah. So, I've done this training and my idea is this, and I'm going to do this, and it's going to work because of this. And the impacts of it are this. So it's innately bringing it home to the people in the room initially, then the company or the neighborhood, the school, the university. And that thing about not bringing polar bears in. No polar bears, because it's not about polar bears. It's not about melting ice caps. These have become, of course, they're relevant. And of course, they're, some of the things we're wishing to avoid. But if we're talking about proximity, back to the saber-toothed tiger in the cave mouth, we're talking mega carnivores here, aren't we? It's like we've got to, it's immediacy and actually solutions as well. So if we can talk in those terms, I think that's the essence of it. And de-jargonizing as well. Just tell the story in your own language to your own people.
So I'm obviously especially interested in was it the 8th section of the training talking about it? Have you got any specific examples there Are there any tales of action from your trainees that you can share?
Well, given that there are 2 actions per learner, 160, we're talking 32,000 actions, um, crazily.
But maybe we
There's
should channel our love of British pop music. What's your, what's your top 5, say, or your top
well, no,
3,
no.
and what's number 1?
There's some brilliant ones that have come in. I mean, so we ask that the learners, their actions, they have to devise an individual action and a group action, but the point, they have to be the best thing that they can do. So if they're a bigwig, it's got to be big. If they're lower down the hierarchy with lower carbon leverage, maybe not. Give you a few examples. Our first carbon literate government minister is now Lord Patrick Vallance, when he was head of the Office of Government Science, and reputedly a great champion of this. Now, his action as the gaffer was systemic. And we're very happy with indirect actions. He simply said that in every regular meeting that his chief scientists had with their departments, climate is a fixed agenda item. So it's not something that is bolted on or comes in now and again. No, it's always in those regular meetings. So by a wise but simple tweak of meeting agendas, it's normalizing it. Everyone's in on this, yeah, which I really, really like. We also heard from NHS Supply. They've recently become a bronze, NHS Supply Chain, I should say. They've recently become a bronze certified carbon literate organization. And the action that their chief exec talked about was that one of their learners had oversight, stay with me here, of the procurement of dry hand wipes for the NHS. Yeah. And from next
Okay.
February, no plastic dry hand wipes will be bought by the NHS. And apparently they currently use 528 billion of the things. I'm seeking what the carbon equivalent of that is. But, so this was just one person who had that specialist niche, a small thing that went really big. There's a similar one. We work with Auto Trader, a big partner of ours, our first FTSE 100 company. And one of the learners there is one of their app designers. She convened a group of like-minded app designers. And now the default setting for this app, which is used by millions of people, is dark mode, which is lower energy. So again, it might be
Okay.
it might be grams per click, but it's millions of clicks. So it's stuff like that. But at the other end of the scale, there's we had one of our early learners was a security guard at the big Next store in the Manchester Arndale Centre. Sadly, I've lost his name, so I've had to rechristen him Bert. So you have to imagine Bert, the security guard, who does not have big carbon levers. But he told us the story of all the clothes coming in on the backs of trucks in long plastic tubes. He said they were like big Swiss rolls, the clothes come in. And the plastic
Yeah.
tubes are binned. And he said, no, that can't go to landfill. And his action was to take the tubes, cut them up into 1 meter chunks, tape up one end of a chunk, and he had his own bin bags. Now, again, grams of carbon. But imagine Bert going around this store at closing time. Hey, you got any litter? Have you seen my bin bags? I made them bin bags because I'm carbon literate, mate. He's embedding low carbon culture from a less expected advocate. You know, what, Bert? You're on this climate stuff, Bert? What? Brilliant. What a great conversation starter. So it's people doing the best thing where they are. That's absolutely what we're about, and normalizing this stuff.
So you're an advocate who's creating an army of advocates.
Or doers. I mean, in whether they would ever call themselves advocates, yes, they have to talk about it, but the action is the most important thing.
So you've had this fantastic success, but have there been any bumps along the road? Like, what have been the biggest challenges you've faced as you've been growing the charity from the beginning 17 years ago?
Some of it's what you'd expect in the growth of any organization. Loving the informality, the responsiveness of a startup. Literally, Dave and I shared a desk. This typing away on a shared desk at the beginning, and having to keep the great power of a flat hierarchy within an organization. We now have some 60 people on the payroll. So there's stuff organizationally about keeping the right culture. We have the most amazing team, but we need to make the most of them as well. So keeping that flow is really, really important. The charity I used to run before Carbon Literacy ran on grants, and we weren't getting any grants. We weren't getting any sponsors, and that was unnerving. I wanted that stability, the foundation there, in spite of the sort of start-stop thing about grants. But I spoke to a wise head who said, "So you created something that people want to buy? Yeah. That means they want it. They're putting value on it. Yeah. Well, crack on. You've got a social enterprise, haven't you? And that is, we're very, very fortunate. We're a charity, but we run on our revenue. That gives us great hope. Obviously, this little thing, the pandemic, that was scary. We'd set up a training thing that had needed people in a room. Suddenly you couldn't be in a room. So I was mentally packing up the office. Which cardboard boxes would we use to empty the office? And somebody said, "Have you heard of Zoom?" So, yeah, virtual training was an absolute lifeline. And we're still majority virtual training, probably. So those bumps, obviously, we look at the economic bumps of the Ukraine war, the current crisis, and we worry, like anyone would, about people not wanting to spend what they perceive as spare cash. We work with one company who said, yeah, they're calling back in any unspent cash because there are missiles flying over head office. That concentrates the mind.
Wow.
But,
Okay. Wow.
and I wrote this somewhat jokily in a LinkedIn post, Trump's done us an extraordinary favor. I think
I think so. Yeah. 100%.
I think he might have terminated fossil fuels. Um, in terms of people going, we don't want this again, and renewables will help us. So, yeah, we're worried.
Yeah. How can the fossil fuel industry spin this anymore? Like, it's unspinnable, this, isn't
Of
it?
course it
Surely.
is. But the flip side is we're always vulnerable to the hierarchy of needs. We are not spends on food and shelter and security. So however important and brilliant we are, we're still in that next rung of spend in some perceptions. We face what I call the carbon literacy catch-22. You get it when you've got it. Yep, this whole thing, it's the comms challenge, isn't it? How do you bring people in? And many people that we need to persuade still don't see it as relevant. They feel uncomfortable going eco. Oh, does that mean I've got to be a hippie? Does that mean I've got to be a vegan? And people, all this stuff. Actually, our mission
So
is
how
to
do you overcome
mainstream
that
it.
then? How do you overcome? So in your comms and your marketing,
Yeah.
how do you overcome that prejudice and also like the perception that what you're doing is an add-on, a nice to have? What
Yeah,
are you doing in your comms strategy to overcome that?
because climate action is about lowering costs. It's about getting work. It's about risk minimization. Now, for businesses and most organizations, we need that. And if carbon literacy is a route to galvanizing, building your capacity to deliver on saving costs and getting more work and minimizing risk, how mainstream do you have to be? And then now our army of 160,000 people that have done it, talking about what they've done, what they're doing, what they're going to do, the results of that. It's pretty compelling once you get the audience. So the stories there, the material, the advocates are there. And again, these people are not wearing caftans. Yeah, they don't. Most of them won't have open-toed sandals. You know what I'm saying? You know, those messages are coming to people from people like them, talking about what's happened to them.
And are you harvesting, because this is obviously all about
Mm,
communication. So are
yeah,
you harvesting testimonials and case studies? Is that a useful tactic? How
some,
can you
some,
exploit this sort of
yeah.
growing army?
So as a former journalist, it's a ongoing frustration that we're not capturing enough of it. We're capturing some. Go to Carbon Literacy Project on YouTube. There's a testimonials channel, which has a bunch of this stuff. And again, it's the less expected things. It's great short video from the car dealership Lookers, talking about what it's done for them. Hey, from the London Water and Steam Museum, about how, et cetera, all life is there, and you've got these great advocates. I want to do more. I could almost do with getting our people on a course for smartphone videoing and editing. I'm not sure where to get hold of that, Tom, but
Oh, bless your heart. Bless your heart. Yeah,
we're
that's
on
what we're
the
trying to
case.
do.
Yeah,
Teaching people how to use that amazing TV production studio that they all have in their pocket.
yeah.
Um,
No,
so,
the point is
but
the stories are
clearly you've
there, Tom.
overcome these communication
Yeah.
and clearly you've overcome these communication challenges because you're doing well, right?
We will hit, on current trajectory, we're going to hit 1 million learners by 2030, which is brilliant and amazing.
So
There's a but.
that's really good. What I want to do is really drill down into how
Mm,
you're doing that from a communications
yeah,
standpoint, so that our listenership can sort of learn from what you're doing in their own work, which is analogous. But let's just break off from that briefly,
yep.
because we've now got the quick fire round. Although
Uh-oh.
I've now rechristened it the medium fire round, because it's very hard to have short answers with these amazing inspirational climate people. But anyway, we'll give it a good old go. So if you're ready, Phil, for
Go. I've
crisp
got my
and brief answers, that would be appreciated.
finger on the buzzer.
What's the first
Go.
word that comes to mind when I say climate? Word association, climate.
Help.
Who's your greatest inspiration, specifically in terms of communications in climate and nature?
Catherine Hayhoe, the brilliant American
Very
academic
good.
who I first came across in the absolutely pioneering documentary series. Is it 10 years old? Years of Living Dangerously? Um,
Okay.
and she was sent with a film star to a Texas town where the 3-year drought had closed meat packing plants, huge source of employment. They were deeply religious. They were doing prayer walks to stop the drought, deeply conservative. She stood up in their churches and said, I am a Christian. I am a climate scientist. Here we go. And landed it, just in terms of the relevance, knowledge, eloquence as well. And she continues with a brilliant mixture of of very authoritative science and empathy, and she speaks with a smile as well.
What about culture? I mean,
Yeah.
you've referenced that TV show, but is there another favorite book, movie, or TV show you can recommend the audience about the climate crisis?
If you've not watched the TV series, the BBC TV series, Years and Years, scary, is it 5 years old now? By the godlike Russell T Davies. I'm a huge admirer of Russell's work because he embeds really important messages about society and challenging the bad things in society in brilliant drama. And I think there's a
And I'm
whole.
such an Emma Thompson fanboy.
So rewind. Emma Thompson played a prototype Farage in this series.
Yeah.
with glee, it has to be said. Gosh, she was enjoying herself. But it was not a climate themed thing, but climate was there. Now, there's a longer story. I'm a failed climate artist, and the piece that I was involved in failed because it was too gloomy and it was shouting climate. Here we had an immaculate piece of main. It was mainstream TV drama, amazing cast, beautiful script, whole thing. The climate was just there. It was absolutely just there. There was a similar thing in the recent Sky thriller Under Salt Marsh, really
Hmm.
sort of menacing police thriller, um, set in the. They didn't name it, but the actual setting was the Welsh village of Fairbourne, which is possibly going to be our first climate evacuated village. And there was a storm coming, and there was about sea defences. And again, it wasn't, this is a climate change thing at all. It was just there. And in that way, I think we bring the message in very, very effectively.
And a fun fact for you, if you don't know this already, Emma Thompson is the only person to win an Oscar for both acting and writing in the history of the Oscars. That's a
Bow
bit
down,
of pub
worship.
trivia.
Yeah, I love it. Love it.
She's amazing.
Yeah.
So I think I know the answer to this question, but like, what's your favorite communications channel?
My favorite is sitting down in a room with someone, if that's a channel. There's nothing quite
It
like.
is, yeah. It's the most popular answer on this podcast.
Is it? I'm very glad. Um, Yeah, in terms of effective, it's not effective for scale. It's effective for engagement. Yep, and building relationships and
So which is the
starting.
most effective for scale, would you say?
For me at the moment, it's LinkedIn because it's
Hmm.
pretty much troll free. I'm speaking to the people I need to speak to. I can get most of what I want to say across in 3,000 characters. Um, I'm trying to conquer the algorithm. All tips are welcome. Me and how many other people, even to the extent of drawing my own cartoons. On the basis that these are not good cartoons, but they're distinctive. So, no, it's giving me some leeway there. And one day I'll find out how the hell it works.
I've long since given up trying to chase the algorithmic changes. I just try and post stuff that's interesting that I believe in.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite stat or fact?
Well, it's somewhat predictable, Tom, but today, as we record, we at the Carbon Literacy Project crested our 160,000th learner certified. And when I tell you that it took us 2 years to certify our first 1,000, and now we're turning around those thousands, about 2,000 every month now. I had to pinch myself still. I mean, we've been growing at that rate for quite a while, but yeah, I like that one a lot.
That is a model that's working. I'd love
Yeah.
to. Well, let's do the quick fire round first. What's that piece of myth or disinformation that most infuriates you that you wish could be wiped from the earth?
Which one? Currently, I think it's the EVs are stripping the landscape from lithium with lithium mining. Yeah. I was on a webinar with a preeminent climate economist, and he was saying, "Oh, you can see lithium mines from space." Sadly, he was pre-recorded. I want to say, "Well, what? Like coal mines and oil slicks, and like we don't use lithium in virtually every electronic, well, computer component." I'm not. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not. Yeah, greenwashing. The the impacts of those mines. But no, the whole pushback still against EVs, that propaganda machine is awesomely scary. I hear it left, right, and centre.
Where do you go for your climate information? What's your number one source?
Actually, it has to be Carbon Brief. I
Mhm.
think they don't overdress it in jargon. It's authoritative. So for the nub, the data, the new policy stuff, it's a bit of a must read for me.
And finally, to end the quickfire round, what's your go-to analogy or metaphor for explaining the crisis?
Well, we've always had hot days. We've always had bad weather. Is typical. I would say climate change is like putting the weather on steroids. That's my fave. I know it's quite well worn. Yeah, sure, we'll have storms, sure, we'll have hurricanes. This makes it work. And obviously now we've got a way, way better science of climate attribution as well. So, yeah,
Mhm.
that one puts a lot of things to bed.
Very good, very good. Okay, so going back to your amazing success scaling this project, and obviously our audience don't do exactly what you do, but they do analogous stuff, right? They are launching campaigns.
Yeah,
They are trying to spread the good work that maybe, the 14 projects that are dealing with, ocean biodiversity loss in 14 different coastlines around the world, and they're
yes.
managing that on an international basis. Like, what are any sort of learnings from a communications perspective can you see could be transferred from the carbon literacy projects over to their work to make it more effective?
Step back from the cause. I know that sounds counterintuitive, but start with stories on the ground of things that are being done. Everything has to focus on that first point of connection. And personal stories with a classic narrative, problem, drama resolution, um, passionate, authentic communicator on the ground. I think that it, you're a communications professional. You're representing your campaign, your organization, but actually, it's pointless unless you have that connection. So focusing on those gems that you will have within your activity. Start with the stuff on the ground with things and people that your audience can relate to. And then the rest can follow.
Do you ever follow the science of climate communication itself? Those people out there doing those, surveys into millions of people and attitudes and, what language works and so on. Do you follow any of that?
Not enough, frankly. I remember my chat with Chris DeMeyer and the stuff about values heuristics still inspires me. We have a funny blend in our pedagogy because most courses do still start with the knowledge stuff, which I know Chris sort of pushes back on, but we pull it back because you're working with people in the room on action. So, the whole thing about moving forward with people like yourself and doing stuff is very much there as well. I'd still like to see more of our courses that some folk have studied. Well, let's just do some stuff and then we'll explain why. I like that as well. But no, I wish I had the time to immerse myself more fully in that. But the work of climate outreach, I follow closely. We are always looking to the polls that Climate Barometer, More in Common, are using to, if nothing else, give us a bit of confidence that we're not out on a limb. And actually, for business leaders, particularly and political leaders, they need that confidence to go against what the perception of pushback and all the rubbish that's coming out from those right-wing grifters that we see hogging headlines.
And the main thing that I always say is that we're we're winning the comms battle. Like, most people are now aware.
Yep.
People are not denying it. You've got the 89% project, which is, and then the project I worked on with a bunch of German academics a couple of years ago, where it was something like 86% of the world's population were willing to donate 1% of their income each month to climate projects.
Brilliant.
So it means that we're winning. It's just about taking that next step into action.
You've anticipated
So yeah, sorry.
exactly what I was going to say. I think most people are at the stage where, yeah, no, I get it. What can I do? And we are just perfectly positioned to say, not necessarily to say, come and do our training, but to say, look, these guys like you are doing this. Yeah. So the connection of peer to peer stuff is so powerful. And sometimes it's a bit. I relish the less expected, the unusual suspects in this. In Wythenshawe in South Manchester, there's a company called Adero who are specialist engineering manufacturers. They make the motors for industrial shutters. Yeah. They're that specialist. They make a thing
Okay.
called a flange motor, which has got to appeal to any communicator. and and they've done their, I think they're a gold carbon literate organization, but their carbon literacy training has led to a £60,000 energy saving from a maker of flange motors, I'll have you know. It's this stuff that at least will get a bit of a smile and get the next, keep people engaged.
And it took great restraint on my part not to crack a baboon joke at that stage as well,
Yeah, very glad.
because you know that flange is the a collective noun for baboon.
It's brilliant. I'll have to remember that, Tom.
What's the best piece of advice that you've ever received, specifically in terms of communications and marketing in the climate crisis?
Tell the story. Tell the story. Again, going back, it's almost drop the campaign. Tell the story. Focus on action. There's nothing quite like it. Meet people where they are. There's also stuff about acknowledging the hierarchy of need as well. When we're working with social landlords and their tenants, we're not telling the tenants to reduce their carbon footprint. It'll already be small.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So a bit of respect and relevance again, proportional, not being preachy, that sort of stuff.
If there's someone who's just coming out of university or just leaving school and they've decided they want to devote their life to marketing the climate crisis, what would be the bit of career advice you would give them?
I'm trying to resist being horribly predictable. Do some carbon literacy.
Predictable is good.
It works. It's your stepping on point. And it's substantive. In spite of our success, it's still relatively spare in CVs, but it starts you off. It gives you an experience, a grounding on the knowledge, and gets you doing stuff as well, wherever you are, even if you're not in the field. There are some fantastic courses actually in the field as well. Actually, it was the Chartered Institute of Marketing themselves were, I think, the first chartered institute to work with us. And there are a few brilliant trainers in the field as well if you want to look into specialist stuff. I'm thinking of Michelle Carville, particularly there.
I mean, is there a particular feature or type of course that you've got specifically for people at the start of their careers? So are there training courses to become trainers?
Yes. Yeah, there's quite a few folk delivering trainer training for carbon literacy as well. You can also devise your own course as well. And we have 1,010 courses. There are still gaps in there as well. So it depends on your field as well. A really, really strong piece of repeat feedback from trainers is how much they love delivering the training as well. There was a very experienced trainer who posted something along the lines of, I was going to call a duvet day today. Grey skies, the world's going to shit. And I don't want to get out of bed. Luckily, I had carbon literacy training booked. I had to turn out. Thank God I did. It gives you a buzz. So I think there's something very personal about being able to contribute by delivering this training as well, because you see light bulbs go on and people going off and doing good stuff. So there's a well-being element to it as well.
The power of peer-to-peer. We all are social animals ultimately.
Big time.
So what do you think is the most important environmental message that the public needs to hear?
This is about us, and it's now. I can't remember who came up with the meme back in the day. People don't act on climate change because it's not me, it's not us, it's not here, it's not now. You knock all that down, as we do in carbon literacy training, and you've got forward motion there, you've got engagement. So yeah, this is us, it's now. And the other side is that other good things happen as well. We talk about the for some, the contested term, co-benefits, the other benefits of acting on climate, which are so multiple. So I think it's not about being green, it's about how we thrive. I think those are the things that need to come forward.
So we always end the podcast every week with the same thought experiment. So imagine that you're standing on the stage and there's a massive audience out there in front of you, and these are all the people in the world who are communicating the climate, marketing climate solutions. They're all drawing up their comms plans right now, their marketing plans right now. If you were to give them one strategy within that to focus on, what would that strategy be?
I didn't prepare this, but 1 second. Drop the polar bear. Get away from the stereotype eco stuff and ruthlessly bring home your message to people's existing values. Not your values, not your organization's values, their values. That is your point of connection. It's not about polar bears, it's about us.
Bravo. I couldn't agree more. What a great ending. So so what have you got next on your to-do list after me? I appreciate your time, Phil, but as a busy climate comms trainer, professional, like what's next in your diary?
I've got to write another LinkedIn post to conquer the LinkedIn algorithm. The one on the
It's like
it's relentless. The one I'm preparing is about my teenage addiction to dystopian sci-fi. Is- Again, I'm literally working this up. And did this inform me better about the climate crisis or condition me to be doomy? ... That's if I get my act together, that'll be my LinkedIn post for tomorrow.
Phil, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for coming on, and I wish you the best. Goodbye.
Thank you so much, Tom.